Welcome to a More Beautiful World podcast with Susyn Renee, a place for those of us with the desire to expand our consciousness, tap into higher vibrations of love, and to connect into a community where together we can make the world a more beautiful place. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned on my journey in discovering how we're all connected and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Here, I'll be sharing my own experiences, knowledge, and expertise for how you can heal, transform, and ascend your being so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of A More Beautiful World. I am excited today to talk about starting the journey to self-love. And in today's episode, I really want to share ways with you to begin the journey to self-love and really talk about how to cultivate more love for yourself. As we're on these journeys of healing and growing and transformation and overcoming, chronic disease processes, I believe that how much you love yourself is going to have a direct impact on how much you can heal and you can grow and you can transform. So, throughout this episode, I'm going to cover what self-love is, why it's important for us to grow, and why it's also important for us to protect it, so fiercely. And I believe that with all of that, the biggest thing in cultivating self-love will help us to create a more beautiful world. So I am going to cover several practices today that you can begin to start your journey to cultivating self-love, and also share how ultimately it's going to help you better yourself and beautify our world. As a spiritual wellness mentor, I have found so often, nutrition, lifestyle practices, mindset practices, they are all beautiful entry points into healing. However, what I have noticed in both my own personal journey as well as in, working with clients, that it is connecting into your why, and knowing what is motivating you, to make changes. That is the key factor to making change last. So many people out there will make changes, for others, or a lot of times, change in our personal, growth and the things we want to do for ourselves. It's more out of self-hatred, and not liking yourself the way that you are. And as I've seen it, when our change is not motivated, truly by ourselves and out of a love for ourselves, that's when we only get fleeting results. That's when things will last, maybe temporarily at best. So again, as I found personally, on my own journey, and as I've seen in practice with my clients, it is when our motivations for change and growth and healing and transformation, when those arise out of love and out of love for ourselves, that is when the changes become lasting. So today, as I shared, I want to talk about that love, which specifically is self-love, because it truly is key to making your growth, your healing, and your transformation lasting. And let's begin by talking about what self-love is. I think today we throw that term around, a lot, but what truly is self-love? And self-love means you accept yourself fully. You treat yourself with kindness and respect, and you nurture your growth and your well-being. And I think a key here in that definition is remembering that it grows from our actions of supporting and nurturing our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So as we, begin today and go through this episode, I want you to ask yourself a few questions and reflect and, ask yourself, do you fully accept yourself? Are you accepting of where you're at right now on your journey? And are you being kind to yourself? Are you respecting yourself? What kind of language are you using in talking to yourself? And are you supporting and nurturing your growth and well-being right now? So if any of those answers are no, or you're lacking clarity on them, perhaps, you are in the right place today, because we are going to talk about how to make those answers a yes and how to give you some solutions to answer those questions. So let's dive in a little bit into how do we cultivate that love for ourselves? How do we learn to move into acceptance of the self? And, how do we start the journey really to get there? Because it is a journey, my friends. There is, like I've talked about in other episodes, we don't walk into the gym, one time or go for one run or do one yoga session and expect everything in our physical body to change. If anyone out there does know how to make that happen, let me know. We can become millionaires together. But ultimately, it's a journey. Okay. So, as we start the journey today in this episode, I want to begin with a quote that really resonated with me as I was feeling into this episode and what I wanted to share today. And the quote is this: "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." I'm going to repeat that again. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. That quote is actually from Buddha. So a good Buddha quote there. But I want to share that because before we begin this journey today, before you begin the journey to self-love, I think there does need to be a deeper belief that needs to be created and set within your being, because as you're cultivating self-love, you really do have to tap into your self-worth and knowing that you are more than enough and that you deserve love and you deserve affection. And, this was a big part of my realization on my experience in cultivating self-love and journeying towards self-love, because of the trauma that I had experienced as a child and, the different experiences and relationships that had been throughout my life. I, for a very long time, didn't feel worthy of love, didn't feel like I was enough for anybody. I wasn't enough to be loved. I wasn't deserving of love. And that paradigm for me and that belief system, really shifted when I had done some work around rewriting my story and reframing my self-limiting beliefs. And I do feel like it's a big part of the journey. If you want to explore the rewriting your story piece, I think it's an important piece. I do have a whole entire episode on this podcast about that, but I want to use this as a launching point to a key start off point. And that is really doing a self-assessment. All right. So let's kind of do a little self-love assessment here today. Because how do you know if you have a belief that you are deserving of love? And I think a big indicator of that comes from recognizing and having awareness around how you're currently speaking to yourself. So let me walk you through a little exercise. So think of someone that you love so dearly and so deeply, and someone who just means the absolute world to you. And hold a vision of them in your heart right now. And let's say this beautiful person that you love so much is having a hard day. All right. And they come to you and they're down, they're depressed, they're struggling a little bit. How would you communicate with them? What would you say to them? As I think about an example that I used a lot, as I began this journey, I always thought about my nephew. And at the time, when I kind of began these practices, my nephew was probably 3 or 4 years old. And I always asked myself, what would I say to him right now? And more than likely, as you think of this person you love, and I think of my nephew, we would say things to them like, you are so loved. You are so lovely. You are so beautiful. You are so strong, right? You are such a light in this world. You can get through this. You're so smart. You're worthy. You deserve all that you desire. I'm so proud of you, right? Lots of really good positive dialogue, right? Lots of really good positive talk there. Now ask yourself, if you were having a hard day right now, what would you say to yourself? would it have that much love and affection in it? Or on the contrary, would it be more like things of, why did I do that? I can't believe I was so stupid. What was I thinking? Can't believe I'm in this situation again. Um, I know for me years ago, when I was really digging into this journey, there was a big gap between what I would say to my nephew and what I would say to myself. So remember, hopefully that little exercise maybe has shown you that there are some opportunities there for you to cultivate more love to yourself. And again, thinking about that quote that you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. In those difficult times when we're having hard days, you deserve, to show up for yourself like that. So, I hope that in kind of comparing those, you might see there are some opportunities for you to create, more love for yourself. And again, just as that one that you love, that you were thinking of, just as they deserve love, you are deserving of it too. You are deserving, you are worthy, you are more than enough. And I do think that changing that internal language with ourselves, does happen when we shift into the vibrations of love, when we start to cultivate that deep, unwavering, and unconditional love for ourselves, like we have for those, that we held in our vision. That is when some of the magic of our healing and our growth and transformation happens. And that's when it becomes lasting. So, with that, let's talk about the practices to make it happen, because there are so many practices we can bring in to cultivate self love. I've picked a few today that I felt were most important to bring to you. But this is a lot of what I work on with clients too. And it is a bit unique for everyone, though I trust, a few of these will resonate with you. So, to get started, number one, I think when we're cultivating self love, a big key piece is expanding your awareness. Now, again, I have a whole podcast episode on expanding your awareness. And when it comes down to people who really love themselves, these are folks who know what they need. They are tapped into what they need, what they want, what they deserve, and they feel safe to communicate that to both themselves and to others. And they feel safe to live authentically in that space of their awareness. And they recognize it and they act upon it. They do not neglect themselves or sacrifice themselves for others. And so expanding your awareness, again, I have a whole episode that goes into ways to do that. But, simple things here I'll share that can be done through meditation. It can be done through mindfulness practices and also just taking time, in yourself to reflect and take some time solo, and ask your heart, what does it need? Heart, what do you need right now? And again, being able to open yourself up to have that awareness on what you need without judgment, without shaming yourself, without feeling guilty about what you need is so important. So again, I think step one in cultivating our self-love does come from expanding our awareness and honoring what shows up there. So, practice number two is bringing in some really good self care. I catch myself all the time. I use self care and self love really interchangeably because I feel that self care is such an important piece to self love. This is probably one of the biggest things I work with clients on, because creating what I call your sacred self care routine is so critical to your healing and transformation. So, what does practicing good self care look like? It can be a little different for everyone, but here are a few examples and things to consider. Caring for yourself by how you nourish your body. Are you getting in nutrient dense organic foods, lots of plants? Are you exercising? Are you moving your body in joyful ways? Do you have a sacred routine where you're spending time with yourself, and getting still and tapping into that, awareness? Are you journaling, and connecting into your emotional needs and your mental needs? Are you finding time in meditation? Are there ways for you to maybe express express more creativity. That can be a huge part of self-care is finding outlets for our creativity, and even caring for ourselves and bringing in newness into our lives. As humans, having new experiences is such an important part of our journey. And, a good self care practice does bring in some new experiences. So, all of these are good ways, to self care. And, again, they ultimately really do fuel that self love piece. And, again, one of the biggest things I love working on with clients is this aspect of creating a sacred self care routine, because it does grow the self love and it does shift us over into this full acceptance of the self, which again makes the changes lasting. It makes the healing, the transformation lasting. So, another key practice in cultivating self love is having boundaries. Ooh, I wish I had learned the concept of boundaries many years before I did. Okay. Because having the ability to say no and to set up a boundary on your energy, on your time, on what you have to offer is so critical in loving yourself. If you're constantly in this self-sacrificing nature, which I see so often, in my clients, and I've had it in myself again. I used to be very self-sacrificing. That is self-sacrificing is such a concept of a lack of self-love, right? Where you're just expending your energy. You're always pouring from an empty cup. It doesn't serve us very well. So you can say no. You can put up boundaries. They can be energetic boundaries. They can be, physical boundaries, whatever type of boundary you need. But it's so important to make sure that you are in tune with what you need. Kind of goes back to expanding your awareness and having a deep level of self-awareness, because you have to be in tune with what you need so you can set a boundary. And once you know what you need, you have to be willing to communicate it. And that will take you a long way. So remember, you are allowed to say no. And I have a whole episode on honoring your energy as well, which does tap into this aspect of boundaries a little bit. And I feel, again, it's so important to honor that and to know what your boundaries are in cultivating self-love. So another really powerful way to cultivate more self-love for yourself is through energetic practices. So one of the biggest shifts I believe we can make in our lives is to work on our energetics. And when I say energetics, that is literally our energy that is created through our chemical, our physical, our biological processes. And it really does come down to untangling some self-limiting beliefs and rewiring our brain in order to raise our vibration, right? Increase our energy. And as one of my favorites, Dr. Joe Dispenza always says, if you want to change your life, you have to first change your energy. So energetics is such a big part of this. And I'm feeling called to probably do a whole episode on energetic practices and, how to use them and what they're used for. But for this episode, when it comes to energetic practices and cultivating self-love, certain tools you can bring in, the use of mantras and daily affirmations, even things if you figured, you don't feel very worthy or deserving, saying every day in the mirror, I am deserving, I am worthy, right? These mantras, these affirmations help to build us energetically up. You can also use tools like sound meditations, and working with different sound frequencies and healing frequencies. You can work with guided meditations. You can even just change your vibe by listening to some really good music. Okay. If you want some good artists, shoot me an email, shoot me a message over on Instagram. I'm happy to share with you some good, uplifting, high vibing music. But those energetic practices and again, getting into the affirmations, getting into the meditations, getting into some manifestation journaling, all of that will help build you up energetically in order to make that shift toward self-love, that shift toward the deservingness, the worthiness, the acceptance of who you are fully. So Another practice that I think is so important and not to be overlooked. I think this is one a lot of us on the journey to self love want to overlook because it can be one of the more uncomfortable practices. But it is so important. And that is the practice of forgiveness. And here specifically, I'm talking about self forgiveness. One of the biggest detractors I see on our journey for self love and fully accepting ourselves is not forgiving ourselves. As we hold on to our pain, we hold on to these past experiences that we might label as failures or, doing something wrong or doing something bad, all those labels we put on it. It can be, not forgiving ourselves for trauma that has happened to us and feeling like, the things were our fault when maybe they weren't. Holding on to things like guilt and shame, and not forgiving ourselves for things that have transpired in our lives that have created that guilt or created that shame. We have to be able to let it go. If you want to raise your vibration, if you want to raise yourself energetically and get, in that energetic space of self-love, you have to be able to let that shit go. All right. And forgiveness is such a beautiful way to do that. Tapping techniques are also really good for forgiveness and moving out of guilt and shame. And again, if you have questions on that, we can talk more about it. But one of the things I have found so powerful in the forgiveness realm is the Ho'oponopono prayer. It is a Hawaiian prayer. And the prayer itself is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I thank you and I love you. And when we take that prayer and turn it within, and you tell yourself, I am sorry, please forgive me, and I thank you, and I love you, and you really feel into that changes. That helps you let go of some of that pain, some of that guilt, that shame. And I even I've changed the prayer a little bit for myself because I don't love the phrase, I'm sorry. I feel like that kind of has more of a negative tone to it. So the way I like to say it, and you're free to use this as well, is I forgive you. I love you. I trust you. And I thank you. And anytime I feel like I need to move through forgiveness, I bring in that prayer in my daily, sacred self-care routine. And it is powerful. It has brought tears. It has brought poetry. It has brought so many things out of me. And it feels alleviating. And it does tap me more and more every time into loving myself and having that acceptance and that compassion. So again, bringing in a forgiveness practice does help so much in connecting you back into the self-love and to accepting yourself for all of who you are. So again, the prayer I use, which I encourage you to maybe build in if this is calling you, I forgive you, I love you, I trust you, and I thank you. So friends, the last practice I want to talk about today is intentional living. And this theme is woven through probably almost every episode that I have, but it's critical. So that's why I bring it in. But I know as it relates to self-love, I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in clients. You will accept yourself and love yourself so much more fully if you are connected into your purpose, into your divine way of being. And you really begin to love yourself more when you see yourself accomplishing what you set out to do. So this doesn't have to be super grand, right? You don't have to know all the answers to your life purpose and have all the things planned out perfectly. Okay, it's not about perfection. We can keep our intentions simple. And honestly, you can set intentions every day and just live for an intentional day and take that in baby steps. Hey, I'm going to be more healthy today. I'm going to eat more, nutrient dense foods today. I'm going to show up better for my partner today. I'm going to be a better partner today. I'm going to be a better mother, a better daughter, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to wake up and change the freaking world today. And that's my purpose. So keep it simple, and make it something that is true to you and that resonates deeply for you. And I do know, as you can keep yourself tied into that intention and you see the accomplishment toward that, that is where the love for yourself will grow. And that's why it's a practice to help you cultivate self-love. So there are a lot of practices. I just shared like 6 themes of practice and a lot of things within them that you can bring in order to, again, start on this journey to self-love and cultivate more love for yourself. And, tribe, in order to really create a more beautiful world, our world needs more love. It needs more love. We are coming out of a pretty dark place. We're kind of in a pretty dark place in some ways. I think we're all, I don't even think, I know we are all waking up and things are shifting, and they are shifting toward love. And because the world needs more love, and, it all does begin with you, that means you need to cultivate a deep level of love for yourself in order to better yourself, right? Raise your own vibration and help us raise the vibration of this planet and really beautify our world and create a world that is full of more love, is full of more acceptance, is full of more compassion, because we are all connected. And I know the more loving, the more accepting, the more authentic that you all are, then the more loving, the more accepting, the more authentic we all can be, because what you do for yourself, you do for us all. So with everything I shared, I am going to encourage you, a little call to action here. Pick one or pick a few of the areas, pick a few of these practices that you can start, and just try it on. Try it on for a few weeks and see what happens. Go back to that example of how you would talk to someone you love versus how you talk to yourself right now. See if you can start to recognize, that shift towards self-love through how you're talking to yourself, and what language you're using with yourself. And see if you can, really notice that internal dialogue shift into a more loving and a more encouraging place. Because with that, as that shifts, that is your sign that you are truly believing and really growing the seed of the new belief that you are deserving of all of your love and all of your affection, just like those that you love, right? So a quick recap here as we finish up. Remember, self-love means that you accept yourself fully. You treat yourself with kindness and respect, and you are nurturing your growth and your well-being. In order to support and nurture your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, you can use some or all of these practices that I shared today in order to make it happen for yourself. Remember, my friends, the world needs us right now more than ever. The world needs more love, which means it needs you to love more. And that journey begins with loving yourself. So I hope you found this episode helpful on your journey. And I share because I believe it is our time to really connect and help each other grow. And I trust so deeply that this is how we're all going to be able to better ourselves and beautify our world. All right, as always, much love to you all, tribe. Until next time. Hey, tribe. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like the video below and then click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, I've got lots of free resources available to you to support your healing, transformation, and ascension so you can help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Make sure you check them out in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.